Hey everyone. So in this video, um, I just want to talk about the Powerpuff Girls lost episode. Like there is another lost episode that someone talked to me about. It was Akiro Bubbles, which sounds very creepy. So let's let's get into the story. Yeah, so without further ado, let's get into the story. Every parent wants the best for their child. I am a single father living in Wakefield in West Yorkshire, Great Britain, and this story happened back when my young daughter Zoe had just turned 10. My young, oops, I mean, my daughter Zoe was a huge fan of a cartoon called The Powerpuff Girls on Cartoon Network. I was a young man of 28 and my girlfriend had left me after Zoe was born. I have never told Zoe that her mother had never intended to have a child. So I was left to raise her myself due to this. I worked online to write news articles. This meant that I myself rarely ever left the house. I also played the homemaker part for Zoe in the kind of way what a mother would have done, including giving her gifts for Christmas and her birthday. This this is how my story happened as I remember a smile used to curl on my face as I watched her play, how she used a dart about the kitchen, arms stretched out, mimicking the sound of a rushing wind. I was aware of how violent the show was, but I realized my darling was smart and knew not to take such a show so seriously into course of her own actions. Again, I was a parent and had to make sure she was looking up to the right people, or things for that matter. Her birthday wasn't too far off, and I really wanted to give her something she could never she couldn't never forget. A real treasure, something she wouldn't accept. So I took my curiosity of the show off to Amazon.com and eBay. The search results appearing prom the search results appeared promising. There it was a trove of children's treasures. But most of the products looked like viable collectibles or were plushies. Honestly, she got enough of those things. Then I happened across the image of the DVD case. The casing had this groovy lava lamp effect in black and blue with half a bubble's head peeking up from the bottom of the case with her eyes staring out. At the top, there was a Japanese text that I couldn't understand, and alongside it had the traditional Powerpuff Girls logo in pink and black, swerving bold lettering. Oddly enough, there were no details about the product. Because it from Japan, it was to be shipped from Japan, meaning it would take a while for postage, emailed it to the person selling it, who replied, "There's just nothing like it," with no signature. Only selling it for a tenner overall, including the shipping. I took a chance. I took the chance to buy it. But I was wise to check the thing before before giving it to my Zoe. After all, I only wanted the best for her. When I when it arrived, I hid the package in the living room until late at night. When my girl had fallen asleep, I took myself down to the living room, made myself some tea, opened my laptop, and removed the packaging. Just as it appeared on the eBay page, with no details, just the imagery, not even a barcode or hint of credit. The covering was shiny. The covering was a shiny plastic as I opened it. And as I opened it, I saw a DVD with the same imagery of bubbles half fed, peeking out from the bottom. The drawing of bubbles and the PPG logo are soft, and the DVD is shaped like an oval. What threw me off guard more than anything was the DVD's rating symbol. For some strange reason, although it received it from Japan, I received it for Japan. I think it's called I received it. But anyway, for some strange reason, although I received it from Japan, it had a BBFC rating of an 18. An 18? Well, no way am I showing this thing to my Zoe. I checked I checked back on the account on eBay, but the seller's account has been removed. Gone. I was stuck with this thing. Damn it. Okay, so, for the younger kids, if you're not watching this, sorry. This is not for younger kids. Like, this is not for you, you younger kids. Or youngsters. Whatever you want to call it. Like, if your kids are not watching this, sorry. This is not for them. Like, so sorry, this is not for them. So, I suggest your kids not to watch any of this. But this is gonna get like super graphic. But so, I suggest that your kids, to the younger audiences, they are not supposed to watch any gory ones. And yes, thanks for your kids to not watch some of those gory movies. So, anyway, regarding my own thoughts of the show, I felt it was my obligation to judge this thing for myself. How I was supposed to get rid of it without knowing anything about it. Well, the seller did. The seller did, and it was because of my raging curiosity. Should have just bought it. Should have just bought her a plushie. I was still puzzled by how I was managed to be a given. Oops, sorry. So, anyway, I was still puzzled by how I was managed to be given what appeared to be a Japanese title from Japan, but it was manufactured in the UK. If they rated the DVD, surely there would be more copies available around, wouldn't there? I include I concluded my own pondering, assuming it would it was a unique product, that there was only this single copy, and was perhaps posted to Japan as some form of special gift to whoever. The seller himself, maybe. I put the disc into my laptop. I plugged in the headphones as I watched. I plugged in the headphones and watched as it set itself up on the title screen. I chose part 2. It came up with a blank start screen, just black and the white lettering. Bubbles Part 2. The screen, just black and white lettering. Akuro Bubbles Part 2. The screen suddenly flashed white, just as seconds worth of frame, making me a little uneasy. I swore I'd seen something in that single white frame, but it kinda looked like what Zoe had seen in an episode the other day, where Bubbles is surrounding her sister Blossom with, as I like to say, a double team. I don't know what the episode was about, but it kinda gave me the creeps. Perhaps an error of some kind, no introduction like an like any of the regular episode has. It started with the professor. Can't quite remember his name. Utonium or something. Starting out at the night sky in his front yard. I noticed how it was just dead silent. I checked my volume, but it was a considerable level. I wasn't having any desire to have it any higher. He looked utterly withdrawn from his surroundings as he stared up into the moon just hanging there. Then he proceeded to walk into the house, and he sat himself down in a chair in front of a fire. Everything about him was just pitch black. Focusing in focusing in on him, something subliminal, like a glitch. A frame flickered of an image of Bubbles. She looked enraged. She looked enraged. A dark red surrounding her pupils. How the great figure slowly approached the camera with those sickly red eyes. It was just like that. Back at the screen, the professor appeared distraught. As the camera lifted from behind the flicker of the fire to see him, alone in the dark, in his chair, the animation looked somewhat spectacular. How it focused on his heavy breathing. The color tone on his face was almost real. You could see the flickering of the lights, and a wave of the shadow reached around and about his face. He was leaning forward, hugging himself, looking scared out of his mind. His breathing was all I could hear. in the headphones. What was going on? Huh? I felt startled at the loud creak in the living room of the door slowly opening by my side. I hoped it not to be Zoe for fear of the spoiling this for her, but that was why I was watching this to begin with. If it was suitable with the way the atmosphere was now, I had no wish to hand this to her at all. I felt the I felt the draft and relaxed a little bit, cursing under my breath why I had gone to shut off the lights. I was kind of afraid to move. I resumed watching, and Utonium turned to look up the stairs, gasping, heard the creak of the door to the girl's bedroom. Seeing the similarly Seeing the similarity of what just happened, I attempted to laugh a little to calm myself. I realized I reached out and pushed the door shut and picked up my tea to drink. When I noticed it, I had gone stone cold, and so quickly, looking back at the screen, Utonium's eyes were bulging, reddening at the sides, his pupils large, swallowing the whites. I felt like I started to understand why the DVD wasn't released for more copies. It may have been an experiment for, for an episode that never aired. Maybe it was a side Maybe it was a side project or was marketed to older fans. That's that perhaps made sense, but this was a show designed for young girls. The professor had risen from his seat and ever so slowly started to make his way to the stairs. The angle was shot over his shoulder, so you felt you were walking with him. The stairs seemed so distant, like miles away. Every step he took, the stairs seemed to draw away from him, reeling back into the dark. A faint figure shot across the screen in front of him as he rose. So did I. He spun around to face the camera, looking side to side, dripping with sweat. A bubbly giggly echoed faint and then disappeared. Reluctantly, he made his way up the stairs. As he reached the top, he went to grab the handle of the girl's room when he noticed something from across the hallway at the end lurking. There was a short pitch black form standing and facing him. A number of seconds passed by uneasily until it appeared to move forward, lining in the dark. The professor's breathing was picked up again on my headphones, and I scratched the sides of my face a little while still watching. What the fuck was this? Again, younger audiences, so sorry if you're not watching this. Sorry. A bold warmth clutched at my shoulder and I felt somebody's breath on my ear. The words muttering softly from the pair of lips. I yelled, swiping out blindly at the dark and switched the light on to find nothing, absolutely nothing. I realized how loud I was. I felt tempted to check upstairs for Zoe in case I'd woken her. I pressed stop and listened out for her. Not a single sound. I feel like I felt I felt the need to turn the DVD off, but I felt hooked. Perhaps this was a version intended for adults. If so, maybe one day when Zoe's old enough. No, no, what are you saying? You can't give this to your daughter. I pressed play and found out that the dark figure was only standing inches away from Newtonium. It looked up at him with a round gray face and no eyes. It stretched open its mouth slowly, with a loud inhale. As it did so, its high pitch descended into a long, deep drone, reaching a pitch I don't think I can even be attainable by any voice or instrument. The screen warped and twisted into itself slowly as it reversed its pitch to be suddenly high like a siren. White noise sounded for a brief moment, and then the figure flickered out of vision, resorting to the Stanford fixed format again. Newtonium looked around him, panicking to see if it moved. Where had it gone? Had reality slipped from him? What was he imagining it? Was I imagining it? He turned his face to the camera, and the screen shot to a close-up of the creature's face, screeching loudly, jumping. I turned down the volume, completely shaken. There was another single frame that flashed for a second. I reversed the DVD and stopped it. It was a Bubble Sisters, standing side by side in all in gray, and their bed clothes torn as if they were rotting or decaying. Smiles carved edgily onto their faces. Newtonians burst into Girl's room to find that the two were sleeping soundly and safely. Buttercup blossomed, but no Bubbles. Something he grown used to now. He got on his knees as he reached the side of the bed, watching them sleep. He smiled, stroking Buttercup's hair back on his feet. He looked to the end of the bed by the windows where the blonde darling should have played rest. A stark white form rose slowly from the end, darkening eyes, torn mouth, screaming. The screen went to black directly, cutting out the sound, and the credits came on. It was finished. I sat in astonishing silence for a second before I adjusted it. I just didn't know what to do. What could I do with it? There was still the other episode to watch. No chances. I didn't want to take chances of an innocent person stumbling across this? I insert the next DVD, shivering at the stare. Bubbles gave Bubbles gave me on the cover. I wasn't. It was entitled. It wasn't. It was entitled "Real." This one did start out as usual. The theme played, and I felt my heart calm itself a little. There was a little announce. There was a little tit- There was a. There was the title announced again, "Real," but no credits. Then another black screen card appeared with Japanese lettering, and then bracketing Absu. Loud static and a collection of echoes sounding industrial, as if record in a factory, emerged before the screen went dark again. The girls emerged from behind Utonium and watched him as he took the chemical X and poured the entire contents into the mix. A stern, determined look appearing on his face. The girls, frightened, kept distance as the pot rumbled and smoke rose from the mixer. Utonium stood back, disconcerted, before Bubbles flew over to the dully colored collaboration of gunk in the pot. The smoke in a swirling, curling motion swept across her face and invaded her lips to her throat. So she inhaled it as she floated. In a fixed state of puzzlement, she began to twitch. The light in her living room went out, making me jump. I looked around me, stopping the DVD for a moment. I had to make sure. There were flickering numerous odd frames at her twitches somewhere. Oh my! Just unlike anything I had seen. Most of the images were the of the villains displayed in a realistic fashion that the girls had occasionally fought in this series, like Mojo Jojo, Ham, and Fuzzy Lumpkins. For all I know, some appeared mangled, deranged, or shockingly enough dead. There's just nothing like it. It went silent again, and there was a static on the screen until it flickered back to Bubbles, staring at the screen with red eyes. Her color switched to gray. The soundtrack began again in reverse. She shot out through the ceiling. The rest of the girls didn't follow her, but stared out at the hole she had made in the ceiling. I'll never forget this. The next shot was of the teacher. Their teacher in the classroom at the desk. She looked towards the door Bubbles had entered as she glared over at her, teeth bare. She threw herself at the screen with a high-pitched scream, surprising me again before static sounded was a switch, and it switched to 3 live action segments. First one was hard to make out. Several rippling lines ran up to the video as it played. The recording was choppy and the audio rather weak. It showed a man in formal dress approaching the person holding the camera. It was handheld and tilted in some places, and the entire conversation was in Japanese, and the man held an unnaturally large, stretched out smile throughout. His eyes contained greed and an indication of loathing direct towards the camera. Judging by the surroundings, it looked like an airport. I frowned a little, puzzled. It resorted to static over a split second, then returned with clear picture and audio of a young girl holding the exact same DVD I had. The Bubbles pictures stared on at me as the girl stood up, smiling proudly as at that unique basement in her hand. The same language chirped from her as she stood before the camera, pointing out Bubbles. It went fuzzy again, with loud static. The emotion of it all tore suddenly, and I found myself gripping at the material of my chair. Japanese was been spoken fluently, rushed, and an emphatic tone as the shaking and movements of the camera stopped when the third and the final segment began. As it focused on a classroom with Japanese children wailing and sobbing as they scrambled into the corner of a room. Desperation and horror hanging in the sound and sensation of it all. My heart just pounded like a jackhammer, especially when I heard the blubbering of the cameraman. He was trembling. A small figure was stood at the other end of the room, dressed in a robe of gray, hiding itself from vision. The cameraman called out to somebody before a splatter of red hit the lens. The man bellowed, expressing grief and further sobbing, the children screaming in the focus of dying. As the camera flung itself back and forth along the hall, indicating the man running, the children following behind him with piercing yells. More blood hit the lens before it resorted to static and the cartoon returned to the screen. I realized something from when I watched it. The cameraman, the one recording it. A moment he was fixing his recording close to a mirror where the creature was. It was him, the one who sold me the DVD. I knew from his image on the account. Oh God, I was just gobsmacked. It hadn't just been an illustration of random real life sequences. It was a warning. Silent once more. The camera was reeling out of a crowd of people staring at Bubbles' lifeless, mangled gray body. Blossom was crouched, staring at her sister's corpse sadly. Buttercup was at Antonium's side, comforting him as he sobbed. Black started to eat at the screen until there was nothing left. It faded into the next shot of Bubbles marching slowly towards the camera, red-eyed, angry, heavy breathing, as if struggling flooded my headphones, gradually getting louder and louder as the walls behind her scrolled slowly. Suddenly, I found myself back to the title screen, silent. It was over. Overwhelmed with shock. I couldn't find myself to move after a minute. I reached for my headphones and removed them from my ears. I collected the DVD from my laptop and placed it back into the case. I had to get rid of it. I couldn't even believe what I just watched. Walking up to my room after turning off the light, I heard a subtle hiss like a whisper directed from across the hall. I got goosebumps, my skin, cracked my eyes, darted back and forth along the hall. I came to the last step and found myself staring at a short black PPG-like form from the end of the hall. It gave a light giggle and I rushed into my own room, slamming the door shut. My heart was caught in my throat. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. It knocked on my door. I almost cried out, biting my lip, gripping on my own skin. I yanked open the door to find Zoe. Large bags rested under her eyes as she rubbed them and croaked, "Daddy, I had a bad dream." Oh, okay. Alright. Listen up. I know some of you are having kids, and if some of you have kids and your kids are not watching this, but, well, it seems like is the creepy lost episode of the Powerpuff Girls Akiro Bubbles, and Akiro Bubbles is a alternate version of Bubbles, which is a zombie-like and suicidal, and it was never aired because it was the lost media of it, and yeah, she is the zombie-like. So, to one of those younger audiences who were too young to watch that, sorry, I think it's for the adults. Sorry about that. Alright, so as for my closing thoughts, I hope you will really like to enjoy this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. because you really enjoyed it. Because if you do, let me know in the comments below. And please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And even though you will see other videos like this, because if you are the biggest fans of Cartoon Network TV shows, then that is fantastic. If you're not a biggest fan of the TV shows, then that's fine, because cartoon TV shows are the best ones, and some say some of them are the worst. But seriously, it's cartoon-tastic. Okay, so I hope you'll have a good night, and thank you so much for watching.